seems to be one of the victims of the Autumn of Terror that is a documented hardcore, what I would call hardcore prostitute. People have wavered back and forth on what is this person just a part-time prostitute, casual prostitute's the word for it, or is this person pretty much you consider making her living by prostitution? What are your guys' views on that?
Well, rather than the word hardcore, I would probably use a word like full-time rather than hardcore. She was no doubt, a prostitute in Sweden. She seemed to live a respectable life, but at some point it fell apart. Her marriage, and she resorted to prostitution like lots of other women. She just seems to have a longer track record with it. But having said that, her on-again, off-again relationship with Michael Kidney. Now, Michael Kidney did work. He was a dock laborer, and he probably did give her some money. But as many of the prostitutes, she had a drinking problem, and she needed to fuel that addiction. But anybody else want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Well, I find it interesting that here is a woman who we do have this pretty good documented past on her behavior in and out of the courts in Sweden and in the UK. But people approach her murder as and possibly trying in an attempt to give credence to excluding her as a victim of Jack the Ripper, making this a victim of domestic violence, that she was hanging out in front of the International Working Men's Club waiting for a date. Waiting for not a prostitution date, but a regular romantic liaison with a boyfriend.
Well, and also she's she told people that she did various work for Jews. She told Mrs. Tanner that the lodging house keeper in Flower and Dean Street, and the night she was murdered was a meeting night at the International Working Men's Educational Club. It was a meeting night. There were up to 100 people there that night. So that's kind of interesting unto itself. What she was actually doing in the street. Even if we discount like Best and Gardner claiming to see her outside of the Bricklayer's Arm at 11 p.m. that night.
And, I don't think we'll ever, obviously we'll never know. We don't have the facts at hand to determine that. But I also think it's largely irrelevant whether she was there as a prostitute engaged in plying her trade or waiting for a date. It was obvious she was having at least a couple of dates that night because of, the Anything But Your Prayers gentleman. Then an hour later, I don't really think that we're looking at an instance of her being seen with the same man both times, in my opinion. So I think it's a pretty fair assumption to say that she was probably there looking for custom, and whether that means she was Jack the Ripper's victim, just a random victim of another John who they got into an altercation, or whether Michael Kidney tracked her down and had an argument with her and ended up killing her. I don't think, I think that all of those scenarios are equally plausible, regardless of what her reasons for being there were.
And, further to Michael Kidney, Ali, he claimed to keep Liz Stride, true and honest. He claimed to have locked her in a room at times, saying that she always got out, but she always came back. And one of the items that was found on her body was a key to a padlock. And I was wondering what anyone makes of that, if anything.
Well, to me, I just find it interesting that a man's idea of keeping a woman true and honest is locking her up. That was one of the first things that said to me, if you look at domestic violence just as a general whole, there seems to be a lot of pattern to it, and part of that pattern can be seen in the Liz Stride-Michael Kidney relationship. Now, I'm not saying that Elizabeth Stride was a sainted woman and, Michael Kidney, did her wrong. I'm just saying that regardless of why is a man locking a fully grown woman up? Why was there a charge of assault against him? Why that whole repeated pattern of you try to go away but you come back, you try to go away, you come back? All of these are indicators of a domestic violence relationship of some sort. Now, I'm not saying he ever beat her. The assault charge may or may not have been actual, but in those kinds of relationships, if a man feels that he has the right to padlock a woman and chain her up, what other rights does he think he has, or what other ownership of her body does he think he has, and does that extend to murder? I know if I feel like I'm perfectly comfortable chaining a man in my basement, I'm probably not going to balk at killing him at some point, just because that total lack of respect for the individual and the individual's right to life and to choice is probably not there. So I guess that whole padlocking instance was one of the first things that made me sort of go, that's interesting, because that just shows if that's how you believe you're keeping her safe, you're keeping her on the right path by chaining her up, what does that really say about your mentality?
It's a good point. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think if you're chaining her up as well, does it sound like the kind of guy that's going to be giving her money to subsidise her life? If he's been on this sort of assault charge and he's claimed that he's locked her up and stuff like that, it doesn't really sound like he's treating her as well as he should be. In my opinion, as and when she can make money, she's going to go out and make money. We saw that she was working at the lodging houses, but she's done prostitution before, so what's not to stop her going back and doing it again just to raise a little bit of extra cash? Perhaps he found out that she was doing it that particular night, and we all know where it ended.